Welcome to Inspiration and Transformation from the Banks of the Ganga with Sadhvi Bhagawati Saraswati, an American sannyasi living at the Parmarth Niketan Ashram in Rishikesh, India. Sadhvi is president of the Divine Shakti Foundation, a charitable organization bringing education, vocational training, upliftment, and empowerment programs to women and children. Sadhvi is also Secretary General of the Global Interfaith Wash Alliance and Director of the world-famous International Yoga Festival. Join the musings of an American sannyasi as Sadhvi shares the wisdom and teachings of her guru, His Holiness Pujya Swami Chidanand Saraswatiji.
Welcome everyone to Inspiration and Transformation from the holy banks of the sacred Ganga River in the land of Rishikesh, India. I am the mom of a 3-year-old girl, a full-time employee, and I recently became a caregiver to my own mother. I am her only child, so all the responsibility came upon me when my mother became disabled. She has adopted the mindset of a victim, and she says, I have to take care of her because that's what is expected of me in our culture. There are days that I cope well with all of the demands of the various areas of my life, and other times when I feel like I just can't do it anymore. I have been contemplating the idea of putting mom in a home. However, the thought of doing so creates guilt. What should I do? There's so many pieces here. First of all, as far as catalyzing energies for decisions that we make that lead us on the right track, guilt is never a good one. We all feel it. But as far as energies that really push us in the right direction, guilt is never a positive energy. Regret is good, meaning, let's say I've done something, and I realize afterwards that it had unintended consequences. It hurt me, it hurt others, it hurt the earth, it caused harm in some way. That wasn't my intention. I have regret. Regret means, essentially, I had a good intention, didn't work out so well, or maybe I was overcome with stress or greed or anger or lust or all of the things that lead us to make decisions that we later regret. I did something. Now I regret it. Now, that regret is about one act, one thing I did. And the regret is a powerful motivator to make a different decision next time. If I know that every time I act out of greed or out of lust or out of anger, that I always regret it and I always feel miserable the next day, and I'm miserable for a week at least, well, that's a powerful motivator not to do that again. So regret can actually be helpful. Guilt is a virus because guilt doesn't say that was an unskilled action or you acted out of ignorance or greed or anger or lust. Guilt says you are an awful person. Guilt is about who we are, whereas regret is about an action. Guilt is about the nature of who we are. Guilt says you are a bad person. And that becomes not a catalyst to better behavior, to more skillful action, to more conscious living. Guilt becomes a catalyst to depression, misery, addiction. It doesn't spur positive change. So I never am in favor of making decisions out of guilt, because decisions that arise out of guilt are simply, what can I do so that for a moment I don't feel like an awful person? But then it's going to come back about something else. With guilt, you can never do enough. With regret, you can simply make a better choice next time. But with guilt, because it's about who you are, you can never come out of it. So I would say to this woman, first of all, don't make any decision out of guilt. Don't allow yourself to drown in guilt. Come out of that guilt. There's nothing wrong or bad about feeling overwhelmed and having the idea of maybe letting someone else take care of mom, maybe putting her in a home to get yourself some freedom. There's nothing wrong or bad about that thought. But as she says, the guilt makes her feel horrible for just having that thought. So guilt says, bad person, how dare you even think that? So don't make any decisions out of guilt. However, the question that we all face, every one of us, when our parents' age is what to do. It's always a challenge. There's always different circumstances in our lives, in our parents' situation, what illness they may be struggling with. There may be times and situations where there's no alternative but to have someone in a home. But given that her mother has already started making her feel guilty, that her mother is already saying things like, you can't put me in a home, that is against our culture. My instinct is that it's not going to be a situation that's going to go well, that it's not going to be a situation, because sometimes there's, especially in the West, I've heard of a lot of people who say things like, I want to be in a home. Like, I don't want you to have to take care. And then actually in India also you hear it. And the kids are the ones always saying, no, please come in, let us take care of you. And the parents are saying, no. You know, I don't want to be that responsibility. So there's always drama. There's always challenges. There's always a fear on both sides that if we do this wrong, we're going to mess up a really precious and critical time. So there's no right answer. What I can tell you is, do that thing which at the end of the day is going to allow you to sleep peacefully and happily, such that you're not filled with either guilt or regret. If you keep her in the home, instead of spending the money to put her in some other home, if you keep her with you in your home, could you take that money that you would have spent and use it to hire somebody to help you take care? Whether it's cooking, whether it's cleaning, whether it's taking care of mom if she needs it. Could you look at other ways of doing it, where the only two choices are not that you are totally overwhelmed and overworked, dealing with a 3-year-old child, a full-time job, and a mother on your own? For those of you who walked in after I read the question, it's a question by a single mother of a 3-year-old daughter, an only child, and an elderly mother who's recently become disabled and moved in with her. So the answer is not to become completely overwhelmed and overworked and sick yourself. The answer is not to neglect your child. But The answer may not have to be put mom in a home. There may be able to be another way. And one of those ways may be, can you hire someone with the money you would spend to put mom in a home? Get yourself help in the house, whether it's daycare help, looking after your daughter, whether it's help with mom, help in the house, whatever it may be. Or if there's the possibility financially to work a little bit less, maybe instead of spending the money to put mom in a home, you could work a fewer hours in a week, if your job permits. But maybe there's some creative ways. Even though you don't have siblings, are there friends of yours who really wouldn't mind spending a few hours at a time with your mom so that you can do something else? So first of all, do not feel guilty for the thoughts. The thoughts are very natural and understandable. But don't necessarily assume that the thought means, that the thought of, God, I would like to put her in a home, means that you absolutely must do that. Are there other creative solutions that would work for mom, for you, for your daughter, in such a way that there isn't guilt, that there isn't victimization, and so that there isn't overwhelm? And never feel like there's something wrong about you. This is something everyone struggles with in their own way. I mean, I know on a very personal level, after my mom had her really, really bad stroke almost 2 years ago now, we had no choice. We had to have her in a home for 6 months. She was in such a state from the stroke that she needed a team of people. It wasn't a matter of one person or two people. She needed a team of people taking care of her, of nurses, of people. She was blind, she couldn't walk, she couldn't eat, she couldn't go to the bathroom, and she couldn't do anything at all. Plus was needing all kinds of different medicines for all of the agitation and psychotic episodes that the stroke had caused. There was no way that, even I had flown back to LA to be there with my dad, but there was no way that he and I could possibly manage, even if we brought somebody into the home 24 hours a day. So there was a period of time where we had no choice. But then the possibility of being able to bring mom to India with me opened up. And so then I was able to take her out of the home and to bring her back to India with me, which became such an incredible, incredible blessing. It was a solution actually that Puja Swamiji thought of. And I remember in the beginning thinking, oh my God, no way. Like, how do you take somebody in that circumstance halfway around the world? How are we going to get her on a plane? How are we going to do this? But it ended up being the most, of course, because Puja Swamiji had suggested it, divinely inspired and intuited suggestion. And I share that because obviously the woman who asked the question, your creative solution is going to be different. But I was stuck for the first 6 months in this idea that there were only two options, the home or our house. It never occurred to me there was a third possibility. And so see whether there might be a third possibility for you between overwhelm and mom in a home. And see whether you can't work out something that's good for her, but also good for you. Good for your daughter. Good for everyone's physical health and good for everyone's mental health as well. And whatever you end up having to do, never feel guilty about it. Know that you're doing the very best you can. And that's all any of us can be ever expected to do. So there's nothing to ever feel guilty about.
You're listening to OTR-FM, part of the IOM radio network.
Being a radio host on IOM FM allows you to build your show on a rich platform with the power of the internet to fulfill your outreach goals and connect with a very specialized and global online audience, unlimited by time and distance. Om Times Radio will provide you with web relevance, a recognizable conscious brand, and with the standard of excellence that has accompanied every single
Circle of Hearts Radio is a sanctuary on the airwaves. Join me, Grandmother Elia, in the circle on Sunday 2 p.m. Eastern as I share information to both enlighten and nourish your soul.
Hi, this is Christina Ricci with RAIN. Every 2 minutes, another American is sexually assaulted. If you or someone you know has been sexually assaulted, you are not alone. Help is just a call or click away through the National Sexual Assault Hotline. Please call 1-800-656-HOPE, that's HOPE, or visit rain.org, that's RAINN.org.
Brought to you by RAIN and this station.
Welcome back to Inspiration and Transformation. I'm so glad to have you all back here with me. You've spoken of probably one of the most core fundamental teachings of the Bhagavad Gita. Do your duty, and not just do it, but do it fully. Not half-heartedly, but fully. With all of your mind and attention and focus and strategy and creativity and skill and everything you've got. Do this duty, but do not be attached to the fruits of what happens. Just offer that all to me. You do your duty, but surrender it all to me. And he's asked so beautifully, well, what does that mean in my life? Like, I work in IT, and what do I offer? So it means it's on a minor level and a major level. So let's say, for example, that your boss gives you an assignment. Figure this out, develop this, write this. And you go and you put in all of your skill, all of your ability, all of your creativity into it. You work it out and you hand it to your boss. You've done your duty. You've done it with everything you have. Your boss could look at it and say, oh my God, this is brilliant. You're amazing. I'm going to, make you president of the company. Or your boss could look at this and say, this isn't at all what I wanted. Stupid, nothing, worthless, useless. The teaching is, do not lose yourself in either of these. For most of us in the first situation, we would feel very proud. I'm so good, I'm so smart, I'm so excellent. And in the second situation, we'd feel, oh my God, I'm worthless, I'm useless, like itna man lagaya. Fir bhi kuch nahi hua. We would just feel awful about ourselves. And what Bhagavan Krishna is teaching is neither. It's not in your hands. You have no idea the basis of which your boss makes his decision or her decision. It might have nothing to do with actually the work that you did and everything to do with the fight that he or she had with their husband or wife or mother or father that morning. It could have everything to do with somebody else in the office that he or she's, having an affair with and wants to give the promotion to this one. I mean, who knows? Who knows what motivates people to do what they do? And the teaching is for us not to lose ourselves based on it. You've done your duty. Your duty was to do that work to the best of your ability. But what comes out of it, not your responsibility. One of my favorite personal stories about this is when I was doing my Ph.D. in psychology, I was living in Palo Alto. I had graduated undergrad from Stanford and then was doing my Ph.D. in psych and was living in Palo Alto. But then, for about 6 months, we shifted into living in San Francisco City. And when we shifted from Palo Alto in Palo Alto, we had these beautiful backyard, and it was a nice house, and I love to cook. I'm a vegetarian since childhood, and so I always loved to cook, and I used to grow my own herbs. Nothing fancy, some basils, some, things that I would use in my cooking. And when I shift from Palo Alto to San Francisco, we shift from a house into an apartment, a flat in the city. And now, instead of a big backyard, I've got a windowsill. And a windowsill with holes in them, 4 pots. And so I start growing my herbs in the pots outside my window. And I noticed they weren't growing. Didn't matter. And I would replant the seeds, get new seeds, get better seeds, more expensive seeds, different store. Nothing worked. First I thought it was the weather, but of course I look across and my neighbors have beautiful herbs growing. And I cannot figure it out. And it starts to really grate on you. I mean, even something as simple, unskilled labor as, growing basil, being such an utter repeated failure at it, started to really make me feel like, am I totally losing my touch? Am I unable to do even the simplest things? And one day I come home from school and I see our cat on the windowsill in the pots of plants going like this in the dirt. And he's flinging the dirt all over the place. And suddenly I realize why none of my seeds is growing. Because of course the cat is flinging the seeds onto the ground along with the dirt. Now, because from San Francisco to Palo Alto, I now had a very long commute. I was out most of the day. I left early, I came home late. By the time I came home, the cat was inside. It was dark. It was only on that day that I happened to come home early and catch the cat in the afternoon out on the windowsill that I realized why nothing was growing. And I love this story because there's always some reason that things don't work. But most of us put it on ourselves. Like I was feeling like a failure. I had completely left the cat out of the equation. And in the same way, when we put all of what we have into something, but we don't succeed, it's very easy to feel badly about ourselves, like we are failures, to judge ourselves. And what this beautiful teaching is the results of what you do are not about you. It's about someone else, whether it's your boss, whether it's a teacher grading papers or grading exams, whether it's a basil plant blossoming or not blossoming in my case. Whatever it may be, it's not in your hands. Surrender it. But there's another meaning to it as well, which is a lot of us, most of us, feel like we are the doers. I am the one who does this. I am in your case, okay, so I'm the tech person, I'm the script writer, I'm the coder, I'm the engineer. I'm the one who built this, who did this, who designed that, who created this. And there's a lot of doership in that. And that's what we would call false self. That's a false identification with the body, with what it does. And this is why when Arjuna says to Krishna in the beginning, my God, I could kill them. My own cousin brothers, my own guru, our family members, my uncles. And Lord Krishna looks at him and basically says, oh, really? Like, since when did you become the one who gets to determine who lives and who dies? Like, who died and left you in charge of the universe? You're not the one in charge. You're not the doer. You are the vehicle through which I do. And that's the other teaching, is surrender everything you do because you are not the doer. Not the doer. So at the end of the day, whatever you have done, whether it succeeded, whether it failed, whether it thrived, whether it doesn't matter. Whatever you've done, whether in the workplace, whether anywhere. There's a beautiful mantra in the Gita that says, Yat karoshi yadashnasi, yaj chahoshi dadasyat. Yat tapasyasi kaunteya, tat kurushva madarpanam. And it means offer everything, whatever you do, with any of our organs, what you're doing with your mouth, what you're doing with your hands, what you're offering even into the sacred fire, the puja that you do, the sadhana that you do. Not just in the office place. Everything that you do, offer it to me. Just be the instrument in my hands. So that's what the teaching is. Offer it all. You just stay focused. Do your duty. But at the end of the day, whatever it was, what you did through any of the parts of your body, in the work, in the house, in your puja, in your offerings, in your prayers, anything you've done, just offer it all to me. And so for you, at the end of the day, just sit. Sit at your temple, sit before the divine, sit in whatever space is for you a divine temple. Could be a room of your house, could be a corner of a room. But something that helps you connect to God. Put, whether it's some images or a statue or some flowers or a plant, whatever it may be that makes you feel connected to the divine. Maybe it's in front of the window that looks out over your favorite tree in the backyard. But whatever it is, sit there in your home temple and just offer. Offer it all to God, whatever it is that has come through me today. That which I'm proud of, that which I'm not proud of, that which succeeded, that which failed. That which I ate and took in, that which I offered and gave. Just offer it all.
This is OTR-FM, part of the IOM radio network.
Om Times Magazine is one of the leading online content providers of positivity, wellness, and personal empowerment. A philanthropic organization, their net proceeds are funneled to support worldwide charity initiatives via Humanity Healing International. Through their commitment to creating community and providing conscious content, they aspire to uplift humanity on a global scale. Om Times, co-creating a more conscious lifestyle.
Do you have time to read that inspiring book or that blog post you've been meaning to get to? In your busy world, how do you improve yourself and keep your life going? I'm Lisa Kay, and my Between Heaven and Earth radio show can transform your life just by listening. Be uplifted with inspiring topics, positive stories, and ideas that really work. Between Heaven and Earth radio is conscious living for your soul, every Wednesday at 4 p.m. Eastern Time.
Like Baldwin with People for the Ethical Treatment of Animals. I grew up loving circuses and other traveling animal shows, but it never occurred to me what life might be like for the animals. Training wild animals to do things they don't understand takes force. Routine discipline with a hook or whip with the heel of a boot shows the animal exactly who's the boss. Don't patronize animal acts. Please contact People for the Ethical Treatment of Animals.
757-622-PETA.
Welcome back. This is Sadhvi Bhagawati Saraswati with Inspiration and Transformation. One of the core teachings, and if you come to Satsang enough or join us online, what you'll know about me is it's really important to me that this is a time and a space about us in terms of our lives and our path to truth, to the divine. That it's not a time of philosophical debates. It's not a time of scholastic prowess. It's a time of how can each of us in our own lives find and live in that truth of who we are. And so we use scripture to help us understand, to point us there, to give us wisdom. But it's not about the semantic aspects. It's not about the philosophical aspects. It's much more about the part of what does this mean in our lives? And one of the core teachings that he began with especially is how yagna, an offering, we use the word yagna to refer to our fire ceremonies, but the word yagna actually means sacrifice. It's actually what the Sanskrit word means, is sacrifice. Now, it's not a sacrifice in the way that from different traditions we think of a religious sacrifice. We're not sacrificing animals or virgins or, things like that into a fire. We're sacrificing that within us, which is keeping us from living in the truth of who we are. So that which we place into the fire is our own egos, our own ignorance, our own attachments, our own illusions, all of that. But yagna is seen, that sacrifice is seen as a very important, very critical aspect of spiritual practice. Many people perform yagnas every day, and it's not only a fire ceremony. A yagna can be any form of sacrifice, of when you are sacrificing means offering your mind, your thoughts, your actions to the divine. Now, what he referred to is a teaching in which Bhagavan Krishna says about how the yagna itself can become that which binds you, that makes you stuck. Now, the question, of course, is, well then, why do it? Why bother? And this is this beautiful conversation between Krishna and Arjuna, when he's talking about karma. Because first Arjuna begins with thinking, well, I don't want the negative karma that's going to come from killing people. But then they get on the subject of what you could call good karma, right? Doing good things, doing yagnas, doing spiritual acts, but those which also accrue karma. Now, it's good karma instead of bad karma, and I'm putting them in air quotes because the word karma actually means action. What we really are speaking about is the fruits of the action, but colloquially we talk about it as good karma and bad karma, even though karma is actually what we do, not what comes back. The fruits of the karma are what come back. Karma is the action. It's what we do. But nonetheless, Krishna is speaking about how even the good things that we do accrue karmic fruit. So you do a negative action, there's going to be a negative result. You do a positive action, there's going to be a positive result. This is where when I was speaking with you and I said we offer it all, the success and the failures. It's just as problematic to feel, oh my God, I'm the best, I'm so smart, as it is to feel I'm such a failure. Because in the doership, in the idea that I am the one who fed these people, I am the one who built this hospital, I am the one who did this, who did that, who performed this yagna, who did this puja, who cured these people. As that doer, I am accruing a karmic bank account from it. Now, it may be good karma, but nonetheless, it's sitting in my karmic bank account, meaning I have to come back next life and the life after that in order to clear that bank account. And according to our spiritual tradition, the goal of life is what we call moksha, meaning liberation, freedom, oneness with the divine, which for many means no longer having a body, that after I die, I'm not going to have to come back to earth again in a new body in order to clear my karmic bank account. But as long as there's stuff sitting in that account, either on the minus side or the plus side, I've got to come back to clear it. That takes us into this teaching of surrender, which rises out of, it's funny, I was going to talk about it then and chose to move on, and then it arises. Arjuna says, well then, why do anything? If I'm just going to have to come back and clear all of this, why do anything? And Bhagavan Krishna explains to him, you can't not act. You're always acting. Even if you close your eyes, plug up your ears, sit on your hands, you're acting. And as long as you're acting, you are accruing the results of that karma. And so Arjuna essentially throws up his hands and says, my God, so what's the solution? Kill somebody, get karmic fruit, have to come back and clear it. Feed someone, help someone, meditate, do yagna, get karmic fruit, have to come back and clear it. Close my eyes, plug up my ears, sit on my hands, get karmic fruit. What to do? How do I finally get that liberation? And this is where Bhagavan Krishna explains the only way is by realizing you are not the doer. By offering all of that to me. By realizing you are an instrument in my hands. That's the only way that life does not make us stuck. Otherwise, it's all going in that karmic bank account. So simply that absolute surrender of, I am just an instrument in your hands. Just an instrument. And it's beautiful, of course, for our sisters and brothers coming from other traditions, because it's very similar to the prayer of St. Francis of Assisi, in which he says, "O Lord, make me an instrument of thy peace." I've heard it translated also of thy mercy or of thy grace. Make me an instrument, essentially, of you here on earth. Just an instrument. Where there is darkness, let me bring light. Where there is sorrow, hope. Where there is injury, pardon. I forget the whole prayer, but it's beautiful. All about, may I just be an instrument. In Sanskrit we say nimitta matram. That bhav of being just a tool in God's hands. And so this is the teaching of how to make even yagna not something that binds us. And this is why we meditate. Because there's no other way to have that experience. There's a beautiful teaching that says, Man eva manushyanam karanam bandha mokshayo. The mind is the key to your freedom or your bondage. When my mind is stuck in I-ness, mindness, doership, ego, history, identity, desires, fears, expectations, I'm stuck. I'm also accruing a lot of karmic bank account, and I'm stuck. But when I'm able to let go, like in our actual yagna fire ceremonies, as we let go of the ego, as we offer the seeds in the fire, we are letting go of that ego, of the falseness, of the illusion, of the ignorance, of the stories, of the drama, of the expectation, of the grudges, so that we may be as clear as that ghee that gets poured into the flames. That's the prayer. Make me as pure and clear as that ghee that's being poured in your flames. But it's all the games of the mind. And so this is where, through our meditation, through our prayers, through our seva, we purify the mind so that we can actually surrender and offer it all to God.
This is OTR-FM, part of the IOM radio network.
Om Times Magazine is one of the leading online content providers of positivity, wellness, and personal empowerment. A philanthropic organization, their net proceeds are funneled to support worldwide charity initiatives via Humanity Healing International. Through their commitment to creating community and providing conscious content, they aspire to uplift humanity on a global scale. Om Times, co-creating a more conscious lifestyle.
Do you have time to read that inspiring book or that blog post you've been meaning to get to? In your busy world, how do you improve yourself and keep your life going? I'm Lisa Kay, and my Between Heaven and Earth radio show can transform your life just by listening. Be uplifted with inspiring topics, positive stories, and ideas that really work. Between Heaven and Earth Radio is Conscious Living for Your Soul, every Wednesday at 4 p.m. Eastern Time.
Baldwin with People for the Ethical Treatment of Animals. I grew up loving circuses and other traveling animal shows, but it never occurred to me what life might be like for the animals. Training wild animals to do things they don't understand takes force. Routine discipline with a hook or whip with the heel of a boot shows the animal exactly who's the boss. Don't patronize animal acts. Please contact People for the Ethical Treatment of Animals.
757-622-PETA.
Welcome back. This is Sadhvi Bhagawati Saraswati with Inspiration and Transformation. She said when she starts to meditate, she finds that she taps into a part of herself that seems just like this constant screaming inside. You're tapping into something very deep. Most of us have a lot of layers of our being. And so, in a gross oversimplification, we'll say the core level, and this isn't an oversimplification, this is deep, the core level is divine. And that's true for all of us. The absolute core of who we are is divine, meaning it's peaceful, it's joyful, it's one with all. Then most of us have a layer on top of that, which is some kind of abject misery. And it takes different forms. That scream, that anger is there for a lot of people. Rage is what a lot of our layers there are made up of. There's actually a form of psychology. It's not very much in vogue now, but it was a few decades ago, called primal scream. And it was a form of therapy that was rooted in the belief, and it's not a form that I ever either studied or practiced or on any side, so I can't speak to its validity, but it's very interesting because the philosophy is that there's different screams that we scream in our life. And that in order to really heal, we need to go back to the scream that we screamed as we came out of the birth canal and were born. Because every baby screams when they're born. If the baby doesn't scream, there's a problem with the baby. And that in the same way that a lot of forms of therapy want to bring you back in a lot of different ways, this form was all about literally getting people to scream and scream and scream and scream until the scream that emerged was that scream when they came out of the womb. So this layer of rage can be from actual aspects of our childhood, things that happened. Could be past life stuff, or it could be literally the scream of the baby essentially evicted from Eden. I mean, imagine you've spent 9 months in this really beautiful situation. And then suddenly, through no fault of your own, with a lot of stress and pressure and force and suffocation and whatnot, suddenly you're essentially ejected into a world that's freezing. It's not warm and soft and wet, and it's freezing. You no longer feel the heartbeat. You're no longer being rocked. Now you're, whisked off and thrown on a scale and they're cutting you. I mean, who knows what else? So it may be that. Whatever the cause is, it doesn't matter what the cause is. And then on top of that layer, a lot of us have what you call personality. And that's kind of what we move through the world with. Now, for some people, there's more layers even above that, different layers of personality and whatnot. But in this oversimplification, we'll call it just 3 layers. The truth, the divinity, the core. Then this abject misery, which in most cases is rage, but not always. Sometimes it's fear. And on top of that is the personality. It's not surprising that when you tap in to a practice that takes you below the level of personality, that you hit rage. Don't worry about it. Keep going, because there's something below it. What happens to a lot of us when we start to meditate or get into any kind of deep spiritual work or even deep emotional work is we stop there because it's terrifying. My God, the last thing we want to do is be face to face with that rage or with that fear. And so we back away. But actually, what you need to do is stay with it and just keep going. You don't need to analyze it. If something specific keeps coming up, set aside a time in your non-meditative day to analyze it, to look at it, maybe to talk to somebody about it. Not during your meditation, though. During your meditation, notice it, be aware of it, and just keep sinking. Imagine that you are a scuba diver. And you've got an oxygen tank, you're totally safe. You've got an infinite amount of time and oxygen in that tank. And you're sinking, you're dropping deeply into that core of the self. And you get below the tentacles of this personality, the masks and the roles and the stories and the dramas and all of that. And you hit this rage. Keep going. Just keep going. Just keep going. Imagine, think about it like, some seaweed that's just kind of grabbed your legs. It doesn't mean go back up to the shore. Seaweed is pretty close to the surface. It's not that far deep. You want to keep going down. You want to go down to where the real beauty is. Now, you may find that in between that rage and the core, you may find another level. And it's worth mentioning if you do, which we're going to call the void. That's this, oh my God, I am nothing. But it's a terrifying nothingness. You haven't yet hit the nothingness that's the same as everythingness. It's that, oh my God, if there's no personality and there's not even this rage, fear, scream, I've dropped into the black hole of nothingness. And again, just keep going. Just know that on the other side of that is actually the truth of yourself. So don't worry about it. Doesn't mean that there's something wrong with you. It just means that we all have these layers, and you're going deep. But you just have to keep going deeper. So whatever practice you're using that took you into that, just keep using it. Just keep going. Just keep going down. This brings to a close this hour of inspiration and transformation. Thank you so much for joining me. I'm so glad to be together with you all each week, and I look forward to being together again next Thursday, same time, on Om Times Radio.